Hello, bonsoir, and welcome to the Get French Football News Show. I'm your host, Nathan Staples, and joining me this evening are French football journalist Mohamed Ali and GFFN's own Eric Devin and Philippe Bargiel. As teams start the new year with that new me attitude, who will stick to their New Year's resolutions and who will blow it within the first week? Well, I might have not stuck to mine yet, but we'll see who else has after these headlines. On Friday, Saint-Etienne travelled to Lille and took an early lead through Romain Amouma before the hosts equalised with a wonder strike from Nicolas Depreville. Early in Les Deux, a draw in Michel Sejou's final game before handing over the reins to new owner Gerard Lopez. Saturday's early match saw Paris Saint-Germain travel to Rennes and come away with a 1-0 win, Julian Draxler marking his full debut with a goal. In the multiplex, Lorient staged a dramatic comeback win over Guingamp 3-1 to move out of the last place, but not quite out of the relegation zone. In Montpellier, embattled head coach Frédéric Ants saw his side earn a 1-1 draw with Dijon, courtesy of Jérôme Roussillon's late equaliser, while in snowy Nancy, Issa Dié scored the match's only goal to lift the hosts to 11th place. In Toulouse, their recent struggles continued as Nantes recorded a vital win to continue their good form under Sergio Conceição 1-0. Angers were barely recognisable from a combination of African Cup of Nations call-ups and injuries, but would have been disappointed to see an early lead slip after Baptiste Santamaria's own goal saw the hosts draw with Bordeaux 1-1. Sunday's early match saw Nice held by Metz 0-0. Les Grenats earned a surprising point, but still see themselves rooted to the bottom of the table. Caen turned in a surprising win over Lyon in Sunday's early evening match, with both Alexandre Lacazette and Ivan Santini notching braces after Maxwell Cornet's own goal had opened the scoring. Caen eventually prevailing 3-2 in a feisty affair. The weekend's big match, Monaco's trip to Marseille, saw the hosts suffer their first home loss, 4-1, with Thomas Lemar scoring a sublime opener before Bernardo Silva contributed the brace to seal the result, which takes Leonardo Jardim's side top of the table. In Ligue 2, Brest and Lens both won to stay in the promotion places, but a cluster of 5 teams still sit within a point of third place. And that's all for the news. But remember, for all the latest headlines, head on over to our website at www.getfootballnewsfrance.com and follow us on Twitter at GFFN. We start this week at the Stade Velodrome, where Monaco shifted back into top gear with a 4-1 win over Marseille. But let's talk about the hosts first. And Mo, was this a reminder of, despite all the good work under Rudy Garcia, that there's still plenty left to do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, there was, from the first game in November, there was still, no doubt that, this team who did really well, I think, just before Christmas to chain those 4 victories and get back into a European spot, potential for a European spot. But I think Monaco did, kind of highlight last night that there are still a lot of changes that need to be made. And, the squad level isn't as high. The gulf between the two sides it's still pretty big, and even though the result I think was a bit exaggerated in favour of Monaco, I think Marseille punished themselves more than Monaco punished the opposition, and it's just, for me, it's just a bit disappointing. I think after all that, Monaco at times were unplayable. They counter at will. They've got a really, really good playing squad, but I think Monaco did perform exactly the same as they did just 7 weeks ago in the return game at the end of November. And it's just a bit disappointing that Rudy Garcia nor the entire team did not learn anything from that game. I thought that game was almost a carbon copy from that fixture. So it was really disappointing to see.
Philip, what was your take on the game? I mean, Marseille, especially in the first half, weren't completely overawed by the occasion and did get back in it at 2-1. Was it just a couple of lapses in concentration and stronger Monaco attacking that felled them in the end?
No, I actually thought Marseille took the game to Monaco very, very strongly in all of the first half. Bakayoko was put under pressure, under a lot of pressure, and even lost a couple of balls, made a couple of fouls, which hasn't happened to him very often in the first half of the season. The back four were actually quite tested. They did have Sidibé at left back and El Mami Touré at right back, who had a pretty good game. But yeah, I was surprised because Monaco took a 2-0 lead. So first of all, Lemar, wow, what a great lob that was. Then you had the second goal from Falcao. I honestly think Pelé maybe should have done a bit better. It wasn't that well taken, I thought. At 2-0 up, I was almost ready to turn it off and watch another game because I thought Monaco would just steamroll Marseille, but they stuck in. They kept pressing the midfield, and yes, it may look like a soft goal to concede from Monaco and from a decent defense that has Glick and Jemison playing. From that point of view, it may be a bit soft, but Marseille got back into the game, and it was only on the stroke of halftime that Bernardo Silva scored the first goal of his place from a Touré cross. And the second half was basically a non-event, but I was still surprised that Marseille was able to dominate, to compete with Monaco for all of the first half. I honestly thought that they maybe be up for it for the first 20 minutes, but that then Monaco's superiority would show. So it was quite surprising. But I mean, yeah, the game was over by halftime, obviously.
Let's get that. I'm going to get this out of the way while I think about it. The Lemar shot, is that a shot or is it a cross? What are we banking for here?
Cross.
I'm not so sure. Yeah,
he was looking at Germain.
Sure he meant it. Yeah, I'm not so sure he quite meant it, but nonetheless, let's take nothing away. It was fantastic. But I do want to mention one player on the Marseille team, Eric, that maybe had. Let's say he had a game of two halves in the sense that he was pretty good going forward, but he left some gaps going back, and that's Sakai again. And we've mentioned him a couple of times. Is he at fault for a couple of the Monaco goals for being so out of position as they counter?
I think so. I think that tactically, I think Garcia got it wrong. I understand his need to want to play consistently with his 4-3-3, but I think with the personnel that he didn't have available to him, notably Clinton N'Jie, he didn't quite have the personnel to play this way. He has shown a 3-5-2 in the past, notably against PSG earlier in the season, soon after he'd taken over. And I think it might have been a better idea to go with that. Sakai is decent going forward and has been all season. Maybe to play 5 at the back or 3 at the back and push Sakai further forward and drop Rekic for Doria and have 3 orthodox center backs. I think Marseille would have been a little more solid. So is Sakai at fault in terms of an individual? To some extent, but I feel like it would be more to do with Marseille's tactical setup as a whole. I think that knowing how much Monaco like to play on the counter and to have width as well, it just doesn't make sense to play that same system with the personnel that he had available. It may have worked against Toulouse, but it's not going to work against a Monaco team that, seeing that Nice had drawn, are going to be chomping at the bit to go top.
Mo, let's talk about the attacking sense from Marseille, because like we've already mentioned, in the first half they were pretty decent as well. Do you think that the combination that Garcia decided to use in Thauvin and Cabella on the other side, were they the right choices going ahead of this? And obviously Lopez joining those 3 when needed?
I think they were not so much the right choice. I think it was the only choice, really, at the moment, considering, the other players on the bench, Cowie and Sarr, are not really of high quality, and you have NG gone off to the African Cup of Nations. But it did work. I think in the first half, especially, Cabella, just after 2 minutes, was denied by Subasic, and if he was just a little bit more clinical in front of goal as well, Marseille could really have had, I thought, about 3 or 4. Goals, even if Cabella had just been better in his decision making as well as Gomis as well. That first 25-minute period, I think, if we just had players of a slightly higher quality, Owen would have put them away. But that's just it didn't work out, and Monaco rightly punished them for it over at the other end. But attack wise, I think even though Marseille already scored about 23 goals in 20 games, which is really not a good ratio for a club their size. In the last couple of games, the attacking endeavour hasn't really been all bad, considering the club has created, the team has created chances. It's just about finishing them. But Gomez sometimes is isolated up front. 12 man comes in off the right, but the cross is coming in, and the final ball is always isn't always of a high standard. So you do need a few more clinical plays in that position to start putting them away.
What do you make of Garcia's claims that the referee was playing against Marseille?
Well, I think a little bit exaggerating, but obviously that cut does stem from two really bad decisions by the referee. And Clement Tapan, he's got a really bad record against Marseille because it's not the first time. It definitely isn't the first time. And I kind of saw this coming. Like every other game but one that Tapan's refereed for Marseille for the last, year or two, we've come away with a really, really big complaint against him. That Gomez goal, I can't remember if it was like 1-0, but definitely to just before Ronaldo did score, I'm sure. When you put the ball in there, that was clearly onside. To everybody where I was watching yesterday, and it wasn't even close, really, to be honest. And then the injury on Cabela, who you saw had he required 7 stitches, but didn't call any foul whatsoever. Two big calls missed by Turpin, who I thought let Monaco off as well. With a couple of their challenges, I didn't like his performance at all last night. But then again, at the end of the day, you have to look at the result, and the result was a big win for Monaco out of chances that they created where Marseille just gave them so much space. So then again, you can't really fault the referee. It wasn't a game-changing decision at the end of the day. I would have understood if it was.
Because I thought. So if I understand, do you think there was a foul on Thauvin on the build-up of Falcao's goal, or not?
Sorry?
Do you think there was a foul on Thauvin in the build-up of Falcao's goal because the ball was?
I was more 50-50 on that. I didn't think it was a heavy foul, but for me, it was kind of it's just. I think sometimes supporters are more keen to point out something just for the sake of it. But the fact that they called out Thauvin is because Marseille were actually so far up the field that Falcao broke away with one player in one defender in his own half, and it was just so easy that Falcao had an absolute age to put that ball away. And then you'd complain about, there's no point complaining about Thauvin whether there was a foul or not in the half when he's got a whole length of the pitch to run. I didn't think there was a foul there. I thought specifically, the main cause for Gomis, definitely that was the one that was absolutely inexcusable for me.
Yeah, sure. Because I didn't think that Zambo Anguissa or Vainqueur had that bad a game. I thought Monaco was just that good on the counter and that good at passing between the lines, and Bernardo Silva was absolutely unplayable. And especially against someone like Ricky, who just could not track him all over the pitch because, well, first of all, it's not even a left back, so very, very hard to. For any world class left back, it would be very hard to keep up with him. But he was so moving. He was moving absolutely all over the place for basically the first 45 minutes, and you almost saw him more on the left-hand side than on the right-hand side, which is where he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it was probably one of his best games. So I can't really fault Marseille for that. But again, kudos for trying to make it a game in the first half.
Just before half time, rather. I thought it was a really, really close game. Monaco did obviously score 2 quick fire goals. I thought the Lemar goal right at the beginning was a bit of a sucker punch, considering OM had been dominating. But the way they got really back into the game in between the Falcao goals and just not letting down, I honestly thought at 2-1 that we would have got the second. But again, Monaco, give them an inch of space. And this is where you really have to praise Leonardo Jardim and just the players that he has at his disposal. They just eke out the shape of the team, the movement, where players get in behind the defenders and then they immediately get involved. That's just yesterday was just amazing for that. I could anticipate where the players would be moving 5 seconds before it actually happened. It was just fantastic.
Well, that's the thing, though, isn't it? I actually saw that Monaco didn't play that well in the first half. Not talking about the counter attack, but in terms of sitting deep and keeping the ball, like Bakayoko, Fabinho, Gleek, Jemison, Sidibe. They've definitely had better evenings.
Yeah, they didn't control. I didn't feel like they controlled anything.
Let's talk about that exciting attack, really. And Eric, I'll bring you in on this. And just a crazy stat that I saw on there, who scored yesterday, that Marseille, 34.8% of the goals they've conceded in Ligue 1 this season have been to Monaco, which is an astonishing stat. And they 60 goals in 20 games is absolutely ridiculous. And they were at their scintillating best yesterday at times, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this team, were... Okay, the two last matches that Monaco played, they were overwhelming favorites, and I think that we saw from Sochaux, we saw from AC Ajaccio, how this team can be got at and played, and to have a match contested against them in a scrappy, aggressive way, and that rattled Monaco. We saw how this team is, a lot of them are a little bit on the younger side, and they're rattled by that. But I think that Marseille, be it a sense of pride or Garcia's general ethos as he approaches tactics, may have got it a little bit wrong by trying to be open and be attacking. I know they're at home. I know they're playing in front of their fans, and they don't want to make it seem like they're laying down. We saw Rennes do something similar, and that backfired on them against PSG. And we'll come out of that later. But I think a slightly more cautious and negative approach may have earned Marseille a draw. I don't think that Monaco were at their best defensively. I think that, as you rightly say, Mo, that the Gomis chance should have been a goal. I think that Jemerson and Gleek both sort of had matches to forget. I think Marseille were there for the taking and shown that they have been there for the taking in terms of a team that just has a little bit better finishing and a little bit better focus. But that wasn't the case. Marseille tried to play an open attacking game, and it backfired. Now, Mo, I don't know. I mean, do you think for this Marseille team right now that Garcia should be his typical attacking self, or do you think that they should have taken a little bit more caution? Not necessarily tactically, but just in the general way that they approach the match.
I mean, I totally agree with your comment there. I think being at home and being in the Velodrome crowd, you can't really just sit back. The conditions are not there really just to sit back against a Monaco side who I would have thought would have had actually a bit of trouble, considering that over the last 2-3 games they've slowed down. I would say they eat past Sochaux and Ajaccio in the cup, and I would have thought with a bit of intensity from Marseille, something might have happened. But I thought they did prove in Paris that they could sit back and absorb the attacks, absolutely close out any spaces against the creative players. And I thought, when I said to a friend after that game that if there's ever a game that Marseille just need to absolutely close the door, that they've got great experience from that Paris fixture. But then again, against Monaco, home and away, we conceded 8 goals in just under 7 weeks. And I just thought it was ridiculous. I think the way they just, we don't have the squad. We really don't have the squad to match up to Monaco at the moment. And I would, in hindsight, it's obviously a wonderful thing. Would it be better to have started off on the back foot yesterday, defending, and maybe towards the last 15 minutes, maybe go ahead and grab a goal? Probably not. I don't think Marseille would have wanted that. But then again, Garcia went with the risk, and it didn't pay off in the end.
Saying this result isn't the end of the world for Marseille. I mean,
yeah, absolutely not.
I mean, nobody really expected. Well, it's maybe it's a bit harsh, but this result isn't a surprise. Maybe the surprise is the gap in the scoreline, knowing Rudy Garcia, that he's quite a structured coach. But there's no real shame, at least this season, in losing at home to Monaco.
Absolutely, and also I think the result was kind of made easier by the fact that everybody around Marseille lost over the weekend anyway. Yeah. So it would be interesting to see Marseille are still 6, 4 points behind Lyon. Next week in Lyon, it'll be really interesting to see how he gets his tactics away from home. Does he go for the draw, like Eric said? Or does he, kind of change his side around and maybe, because obviously if Lyon do win next weekend, fourth is absolutely out of the question for Marseille, I believe.
Let's talk about that. Talk about the hot button topic with Marseille at the moment, and that unfortunately is Dimitri Payet and his insistence to leave them from West Ham. There's been 2 bids reportedly rejected today of around £20 million. Supposedly they've upped that to 21 million. The meeting early today was supposedly lasted about 15 minutes, so it doesn't seem like the two sides are talking too coherently at the moment. There are a report on Sky Sports just at the moment that he only wants to leave for Marseille mainly due to family reasons. Marseille is the only club he's willing to go to. Are you excited of a potential return from him, Mo?
I mean, yeah, to an extent, yeah, because this is a player that's obviously approaching world class. He lit up his final season in France over in 2014-15, and he did the same last season for West Ham in the Premier League. A lot is said about how players from France can make the grade in England, but he's definitely the one that's bucked the trend. Particularly last season, he's massive creative talents in any side, and obviously having that back to Marseille is very often the way that players kind of fight with French clubs to kind of engineer and move to the Premier League. So we'll kind of take this one where the reverse is happening, and it's very great to see that player of Payet's ability to finish 17th in the Ballon d'Or a couple of weeks ago, the FIFA award, I can't remember which. Wants to move back to Marseille. So it's very, very interesting and exciting. And if it does pull off, I think it'll be great to see him at the Velodrome again. His love for the club is obviously unmatched.
What kind of stick does he actually get these days? I mean, is it inexcusable kind of treatment, or do people actually people actually understand why he wants to go? Is it a case of West Ham are not having a great season? Actually, they're having a great run these days.
I think honestly, nobody in England understands kind of the situation that West Ham and Payet find themselves in. I think, a lot of people don't really understand sort of, I call it English arrogance or superiority thinking, I don't know, but a lot of people really just can't comprehend that this is the situation. I think West Ham haven't had the best season, but I don't think having a bad season enough is to really engineer a move away. I think there's something bubbling under the surface. Maybe if it's to do with personal reasons.
Well, they were though. Yeah. I mean, they were in terrible form though.
But you wouldn't see. I can't really pick a play off my head, but you really wouldn't see a team that's supposed to be doing well in 17th or 18th. West Ham are actually 12th at the moment. Not exactly scrapping. Not exactly scrapping with the likes of Crystal Palace and Sunderland and the likes. But it's not as if that a player who's thought to be doing well and finds himself in the team thinking, you know what, in January I'm off. That just doesn't happen. I think that it's something behind closed doors, or I think over maybe his family, or the fact that maybe he just does not enjoy London, his kids can't settle in, and the like. I think that has been the motivator. Calling him money-grabbing so-and-so kind of surprises me, because Marseille is not exactly a destination for players to go with a lot of that looking for a pay rise essentially. And I just think that he's yearning for home. His kids or his family are not enjoying it. He's probably not enjoying it. And just no amount of money can, if you're feeling homesick, no amount of money can change that.
But that's the thing. I mean, do people actually understand that? Do people actually understand that he
absolutely not.
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not. If you watch Soccer Saturday rather, and the likes of the Premier League pundits, I'm just absolutely incensed by the sort of don't get me started.
In all honesty, in this kind of thing, I think sometimes we forget these players are human. We've seen it. The one that springs to mind straight away, and unsurprisingly it does, is Di Maria and the unfortunate incident where his house was broken into without him, and how that clearly on the field affected him, and how much happier he must be in Paris with a little bit more safety around him. That it just happens. It's football.
It
it's
just
not,
happens. I mean, it's happened to Marseille with Lucho Gonzalez a couple of years ago when his house got broken into in Marseille, and a couple of months later he went to Porto for free.
Yeah,
A guy that Marseille signed for 20 million euros, the record transfer, went for free. At the end of the day, Nathan, you're absolutely right. They're only human. But, a lot of people don't understand. And a lot of people are questioning why Marseille, why is it, he could play for Arsenal, he could play for Chelsea, he could play for so-and-so. At the end of the day, it's a job and he's a human being doing a job.
Well, yeah, but high-level sport is a lot of mental strength as well. And if you're not happy with where you are and what you're doing, I mean, I think it's easy to have you make a few stray passes, you miss an easy chance, and I think it becomes quite easy to just have a bad game and say, okay, so that I'm off.
Yeah,
which I think is what is happening actually.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like with West Ham, where they're concerned, I agree that it's absolutely not the way to be doing it. I personally, would have said wait till the summer, because you just don't do this. If West Ham are willing to sell, he's 29 going on 30 in 2 months' time. Just the market isn't right for a player his age. West Ham are asking for a world record, basically, fee for a player his age at the moment. And Marseille, they have money, but they don't have unlimited money. And the way that he's doing it, striking, he's got a club that adores him, a club that really, hit the jackpot when they signed him 2 years ago. And he's done well at, and he's been given the chance to really make a statement. They've just opened a new stadium, to really put himself in the category of the likes of like Zola and others, Di Canio as well. Really, make a name for himself. And if he is to leave, if he's not happy at the end of the season, move on. If it's to Marseille, I don't think. Well, what is 4 months essentially? What is 4 months? Absolutely nothing. It's not. It really isn't that much for your family to get ahead of you now, and for you to join them in a couple of months. Really, he's on a massive golden salary as well. I personally don't agree with the striking. So the onus is on what can you do? There's no easy answers here.
Yeah, and let's bookend this by saying that at the end of the day, this isn't the first time he's been on strike at a football club either. So it's maybe. Yes, it's maybe a minor question of character as well, and maybe that's something that clubs should study before they buy these kind of players. But let's before we spin out of control, let's leave it there. Thank you, Mo, for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much.
We'll move on now to another big transfer in France that actually has been gone through, and that's the signing of Julian Draxler to Paris Saint-Germain. And the German started ahead of Angel Di Maria in the starting lineup and scored in that 1-0 win over Rennes. Eric, is that a real statement of intent from Unai Emery to leave out the Argentinian and start his new signing?
A statement of intent.
Is it him finally getting a grip on this team? Maybe that's what I'm thinking.
But as you mean stamping his authority in the team?
Yes.
I suppose it could be construed that way. But at the same point, PSG have just been playing in the Coupe de la Ligue. Di Maria played a great match against Metz, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't think it's. I think if he is dropping him, it's either through rotation or just to give Draxler a run out. It's not necessarily a statement of intent to say, "Listen, Di Maria, step in line." I do think, though, in terms of actual performance on the pitch, it does give a really nice balance to the team. I think that Draxler and Lucas have a similar way of playing. They can also cut inside and score goals, whereas Di Maria is more of an orthodox winger and is more likely to stretch play and put in a cross. I think you're getting a little bit more versatility, a little more goal scoring from Draxler, and that is something that I myself have slated Di Maria for in the past, and for not scoring enough goals this season in particular, or contributing enough assists. I think that against a team like Rennes, who are playing more defensively, I mean, Gelson Fernandez is your right midfielder. Let's face it, you're not being very ambitious there. I think that in that case, that Draxler makes more sense, but I think that for the time being, and we'll see how this comes to bear, but I think for me that Emery is going to stick with Di Maria in the biggest matches that are more important. And I think as ludicrous as it may sound, playing against Metz in the Coupe de la Ligue was, at this point in time, more important than playing against Rennes in the league. PSG have a long way to go in the league. They're still in good position to challenge for the title. They're now being 3 points off, but the Coupe de la Ligue is for the team at present a more tangible trophy. Beat Metz, you're in the semis. Win that match, and then you're in the final. And that's the first trophy of the Emery era. And that's a very important step for him to take. I mean, he was brought in again to win European trophies, but I think there's been also some discussion that is important to think about. Had PSG taken the league for granted, and that there necessarily needs to be a focus on these so-called lesser trophies as well to sort of keep things ticking along, keep the players happy, keep winning things. So I think for this match in isolation, I think we're a little too early to make any big conclusions, but I do see how there's more of an attacking impetus when Draxler's on the pitch, and I think that could be useful against some more negatively focused teams domestically.
I think a lot of people were actually quite happy to see Di Maria on the bench and see him actually challenged and not getting the nod in front of Lucas each and every time at every single game. And I do agree that with Draxler on the left, Lucas on the right, which is his best position, he's got a good thing going on, and find a bit of competition, finding more than a couple of wingers and the youngsters. It's good to see. All in all, it's good to see. Even though Saturday was not the best game, especially the second half. We didn't see actually that much of Julian Draxler in the second half. But it does look good, and it adds more competition for spots, which can only be good for the club. It needs that kind of competition. Otherwise, you can just see the players just being complacent.
Speaking of competition, is there any more signings that the club needs to do this window? Maybe some more competition for Cavani, Philip, or maybe some defensive reinforcements?
Well, that's a big problem because if PSG are going to buy another striker, he needs to be able to play the Champions League, because the aim here would be to win the league, compete against Monaco and Nice. Although I reckon it's more going to be against Monaco. And do something against Barcelona. But if he's already playing in the Champions League, I don't really see who. I honestly don't think Kluivert has anyone lined up to buy as a centre forward. I don't really see something going on. If I'm being completely honest, I don't think anyone will be signed until January 31st. There are talks of James Rodriguez. Not heard a lot else. Yeah, to be honest, I do believe that PSG need reinforcements. They need reinforcements in the big games, but aside from the game against Monaco in a couple of weeks, the probable final of the Coupe de la Ligue against Monaco, and the double header against Barcelona, there won't be that many big games to come until the end of the season. So I'd probably wait the end of the season. If I were PSG, and think about who my real targets are, start contacting them now, or maybe even buy them now and loan them for the rest of the season. I just don't see anyone new coming in.
Eric, is that the same thought in your head for this January transfer now? Is that PSG done for this window?
I think so. I think the other mitigating factor here, and I'd like to get Philip's take on this as well, is the fees that are being linked with players from Chinese clubs. I mean, we've seen Diego Costa, Griezmann is another one who I've seen a couple of things about moving to China. And the fact that these fees are even being bandied about means the market's artificially inflated. And January is already a hard time to buy players. January is already a hard time to buy center forwards in particular. So I think that PSG, if they're really going to go all in on giving this team to Emery and letting him put his mark on it, I think that they should allow him to take a holistic approach and bring a player in this summer. Personally, if money were no object, I think I would bring in Aubameyang. I think that his style of play is perfect for PSG, but that's just me. I do think that the current situation in world football in terms of availability of players and the prices is a mitigating factor right now, and I don't think that PSG I don't think money spent now would be money spent wisely.
Yeah, same. And plus, I mean, who are PSG compared to Borussia Dortmund or Bayern Munich or Barcelona or anybody else? I mean, I don't. Aubameyang doesn't strike me as a guy who will say, "Oh, PSG want me." Well, I'm going to go all Dimitri Payet, go on strike and just wait until I get my move. I just think that it would be a great transfer for PSG, for the club, for French football, to get Aubameyang back from the Bundesliga. But ultimately, I think he's quite happy where he is, and this is where it's very, very difficult, because you need players who are at not as good clubs, and maybe that do actually want to play for PSG.
Well,
Does that mean, maybe a Lukaku? Maybe I'm still throwing that one in the hat.
yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say about Aubameyang is Dortmund are having a bit of a tough season, and I wonder if, given his age, and I think he's 28 this year, given his age, he's looking at his potential and saying, "Well, Dortmund are going to keep rebuilding with these youngsters. That's the way they go. They sell players. They sell a Hummels. They sell a Götze. I know Götze is back, but you take my
To Bayern Munich,
or to anybody else. I mean, Mkhitaryan, Gundogan as well. And there's this constant churn of players. So I kind of wonder if, from Aubameyang's perspective, that he views Dortmund as being perhaps maybe bumping up against a ceiling that they're not going to go any higher. If there could be something to that's the reason that I might put him forward, as opposed to a player at a club that's a little bit more settled. So that's my thinking there. That a constant churn of players for Dortmund might be a source of frustration.
And I wouldn't mind us buying Dembele back, in a couple of years. Can we
bring everyone back to French football?
Yeah, it could be good, decent competition for Di Maria in 3 seasons. But I don't think he'll still be there. But
the years that French football starts buying back all their French players, blimey, that'll be a good one. Martial will be
maybe.
Let's move on to two teams that didn't have quite the start to 2017 as they'd hoped, as Nice drew with bottom club Metz and Lyon lost 3-2 to Caen. We'll start at that draw at the Allianz Riviera, Eric. Is this a sign that they're going to miss some of those players that are out at the moment, like Seri at the African Cup of Nations and Belhanda and the like?
Oh, undoubtedly. I think looking at who is available for Nice, obviously you're missing Balotelli from suspension, and he'll be back. But I mean, this was their first choice lineup. Maybe you can make a point about Cardinal versus Benitez, but I thought Benitez had a really good game, a really good match. So I would have no issue with that. I think that maybe you might want to bring in Acerich, but I believe he's injured as well for the time being. So it's going to be a frustrating next couple of weeks for Nice. Even with Balotelli back, I think that the creativity and the inventiveness that they get from having Seri and Belhanda in the side is really what makes the difference. Nice aren't exactly an offensive juggernaut. They do what they do by having a solid defense, by keeping the ball, and without those superlative creative players to sort of spring the lock, if you will. This might not be their first scoreless draw until they get Belhanda and Seri back from injury and AFCON, respectively.
What's wrong with Walter already?
I'm trying to remember.
What's wrong with
an injury? Or Rémi Walter, the number 18, who has played basically every game in midfield, has kept Costello out of the side.
I think he was injured at the weekend.
Okay, but not for long though.
Not seen any reports, I don't think. Yeah. So that would suggest to me that it's not long-term injuries, but they did look like what I did in the midfield.
What I was surprised about is a formation 3-4-3 with Lucien Favre completely changing everything, instead of maybe putting someone who's not that, shall we say, accustomed to be playing behind Alassane Plea. And having a 3-man midfield like they always had. I mean, this time around it was only Costello with Cyprien. Both were completely lost. Having Ricardo Pereira on the front right of 3-4-3, you didn't know where he was. Musamba was a bit more comfortable in that role, playing sometimes midfielder, sometimes winger. But it just didn't work from the word go. Metz were more present in midfield, and Benitez had more work to do than his opposite number. And I just thought, Fav, why don't you change the whole thing after 20 odd minutes? We can all see it's not working, and that you're not troubling Metz. You're probably not gonna test Didier enough. Well, they did a bit. But why don't you change it? And why didn't you replace Player when he was obviously struggling? It's almost as if he was trying to prove a point and say, okay, I'm going to try and play 3-4-3. It's not working. I'm gonna waste 2 points on a home game against Metz, and so that nobody will criticize me for playing this formation ever again. I just didn't see the whole point in that game, and that's not just because I was live tweaking it yesterday and I was bored.
Well, so hold on, Philip. You're saying you'd rather have seen them play 3-5-2?
Yeah. With Donis and Player up front.
It's a tough one, isn't it?
We don't even know what this guy's like. We don't even know he's had so few opportunities. I mean, maybe it would have worked. Maybe it would have worked. But
I like what I've seen from them. That is a fair point. I mean, this is the thing, right? If managers have injuries, oftentimes they'll say, "I need the best 11 players on the pitch." But if that comes at the risk of having to play several of them out of position, and essentially you had the back line and Dalbert playing their correct positions, play as well, but Pereira's playing further forward than he's used to. Suke is having to function as an auxiliary midfielder. Cyprian and Coziello. No, he was, and that's the thing. I watched this too. Cyprian and Coziello, their roles are slightly different, as you rightly mentioned. It's a 2-man midfield as opposed to a 3-man midfield. So you may be onto something there, Philip. I think that the consistency for 10 players versus giving Donis a try in Belhanda's spot might not be the worst thing in the world. If Walter is back at the weekend, then I think Nice will look a little bit more positive. But it's certainly a salient point.
I mean, it's not even the fact of you can play whoever you want next to Play up front. It doesn't even have to be that comfortable in the role. It's just Play with a midfield trio. Otherwise, you're just not going to have any impetus in midfield. It just didn't seem to be working at all. And also, one last thing about Nice. Malang Sarr seems to be having a rough time. It's been going for a couple of weeks now. Well, a couple of weeks, December and the start of this year. But he seems to be much less confident these days than he was before for some reason. I'm not sure why.
I'm just looking at that Nice bench of Poupin, Bernard, Donis, Belmy, Marcel, Mau, and Bassetti. There's maybe a little length of depth. That's maybe why he's thrown out that 11 of probably is what he feels at least is his best team. But a bit of an anomaly this weekend. They might hopefully pick that up back next week and keep the title race exciting. But a really surprising result. Saying we've talked about how indifferent Caen can be, but Lyon again, after picking up before the start of the winter break, have again knocked themselves back with a poor result, Eric. And is this one excusable, really? They were 2-0 down relatively early on. They pulled it back before half-time, but they still couldn't quite find a goal and eventually succeeded Team Van Santini.
Excusable? I mean, that's a tough thing to say. I think that what this match came down to is that Caen have been awful on the road. And this is something I'll address in my talking points that'll be out tomorrow as well. Caen have 1 point on the road all season. They're the worst team in France. Now, they're on the road against Nantes midweek this week, and they've got more matches on the road against relegation rivals coming up.
You're waking up, Eric.
Sorry?
No, it's fine. It's okay. Carry on.
And that being the case, Caen had to see this as being a place they had to get 3 points. So, but credit to them, instead of being negative and nasty, they played a physically aggressive game, and that unsettled players. You can see that Valbuena, Tolisso, Fekir, those three in particular, were incredibly frustrated with the physical approach that Caen took to the match. There were 47 fouls in this match, which was better than a foul every 2 minutes between the two sides. So they got what they wanted. They got Lyon to react, to play physically with them as well, and to frustrate them. Fekir was magnificent last weekend against Montpellier. 3 assists and a goal. There's nowhere near that player, even though they're playing the same situation with essentially the same 11. So Con took the opportunity to get Leon rattled, and they couldn't get back in that. Lacazette had 2 goals. That shows his veteran quality, but I think that particularly for the likes of Fekir and Tolisso, these are players who are incredibly talented but have struggled at times in adverse situations, of which this was one. And I think that to me is what it is. If Genesio can't bring that team to play to an approach that can avoid being sucked into that nasty physical chippy match that Con were trying to play, then what do you have? What do you have? You have the result that's deserved. I think that credit also to Con for being more positive. They've moved to a 3-4-3 from a 3-5-2 to privilege Jan Carmo and play him as more as an orthodox winger. And I think they look great as a result. But yeah, Con got this right. Leon got this wrong. They didn't have the mental strength to deal with Con's approach, and that's that.
Philip, what was your take on this one? I mean, there was a decent game from Lacazette and scoring the 2 goals, but Maxwell Cornet scores an own goal and doesn't have the greatest of matches. What was your take from this one? Philip?
Yeah.
Sorry. What was your take from the Lyon game?
I thought the first goal was. I'm sorry, I just couldn't hear you, Eric, and I had to reboot the whole thing. So I didn't really listen to the last 2 minutes. I thought that Con's goal was actually quite fortunate, being 2-0 up quite early on. A very entertaining first half. Cornet did very well to get the equaliser, but then the second half was just not as good, and Con really did need to dig deep to get that winner. You'll never really. There was this shot by Touzard, and I mean quite evenly contested. But I don't think we should criticize Lyon that much. They were beaten by a side that really wanted to win, and that they are not that easy to beat anymore.
And it's a real surprise from Con. They, like Eric's mentioned, they have been very good at home, and
they are 7th at home. That's not bad,
and that's really pushed them really up the table at the moment. And it's impressive, especially with Santini starting to continue scoring goals. He's been a really good addition for them this season. Time for a new section now that we like. Go ahead.
If I just may, I promised my friend I would do this. Memphis Depay to Lyon. Since Memphis Depay is playing at the club you support, Nathan, and is heavily linked. Actually, he's not even linked. Lyon have made 2 offers. The latest from 15 million, and Manchester United won 20. What does everyone think?
I'll let you go first if you like, Eric.
Me too.
Well, but he's okay. This is the thing. They want a replacement nominally for Rachid Ghazal.
Yeah.
And Ghazal plays on the right. Depay plays on the left. Valbuena is in good form. I think you really risk upsetting the balance that this team has by bringing Depay in, unless Genesio thinks he's going to play him on the right or switch Valbuena to the right. I think you're really at risk of not throwing the season away, but making things go south. I think if you want to bring in a player like this, bring him in the summer, and give him more time to integrate with the team. It's going to be a new language, a new club, a new league. I just, for that money, I appreciate Depay has potential. I know he was incredible with PSV, right? Is that right, Nathan? Before he came to United?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I just don't know about for where Lyon are right now. It doesn't seem like it makes the most sense to me.
I agree with Eric in the sense that I think it's maybe a slight warning sign that there's no other clubs in for him at all. Supposedly, Lyon are the only club that's contacted United about Depay. There's no one else throwing their hat in. No one from England at the moment is throwing their hat in either. Even at, I believe we're asking for 17 million euros, and the current offer stands at 15 million. So there's a little bit of ways to go. But does he fit Lyon? He's a bit mercurial. He certainly has talent, but he's never been consistent at United. He had a good run of games at the start of the season under Louis van Gaal last year. He didn't really do anything enough. He looked okay at times, and then he dropped off a cliff. He seemed to have the right attitude coming in, but I'm not. He's barely played this season. After that, he's made a couple of substitute appearances. There's too many players in front of him at Man United now. Is he going to upset that balance at Lyon at this moment in time? Maybe, but also is maybe Lyon thinking that in the summer there might be more competition, so the price may go up, or he might go somewhere else. Maybe that's the motivating factor there. If he can produce the form we've seen in the past at PSV and Holland and with the Netherlands, he could be a really terrific, underrated signing and possibly cheap at that. But if he carries on playing the way he has done for Man United, it might be a waste of money, really, in all honesty.
Well, that's the thing, though. He hasn't really played. I mean, he's played 4 substitute appearances, and most of them he came onto the pitch with less than 10 minutes to go. So wouldn't he benefit from being a squad player at Lyon well, they do have, Lyon do have the Europa League, so he could help them in that competition.
Yeah, he'll be cup
tied. Shit, so yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
yeah, I didn't think about that. Well done. Or maybe in other league games, and then play a bit more regularly next season once he's settled. A bit like Monaco's Jemison coming in January and not being very good at that from the start, but then having a good preparation and then becoming a decent player for Lyon, which I do reckon that could happen. He could also be bought in August. I mean, that's an option as well.
I think the only reason they're pursuing this deal so hard now is I think they think I'm not saying necessarily a bigger club, but other clubs with more opportunities might come in for him. And this might be a good time to sign someone who could potentially be very good, especially if Lacazette or Fekir were to go in the summer. I think that's probably the motivating factor at the moment. But I'm not the biggest fan of it for Lyon at this moment in time. In the summer, maybe for them, but like I say, competition then maybe is a little bit of a worry. But we'll move on now to a new section, what we like to call the verdict. I'll throw a topic at a pundit. That can be a team, a player, or anything like that, and they will reply whether they think things look on the up or if they look like they'll go downhill from where they are. So this week, my topic is Nancy, who have lost just once in their last 10 games in all competitions, if you would believe it. Eric, have they made themselves safe from this run, or is that maybe just an illusion and a bit of a hasty thing to go to now?
No, I don't think so. I think that having watched them against Nantes in the Cup, they have a good organization. They may struggle a little bit with injury, with Michael Chrétien being injured and Clément Lenglet being sold. But Pablo Correa has this madcap rotation system, and it's when he first started the season, I think most of us were like, really, you're going to literally change 5 or 6 players every match and hope you can get away with it in a very competitive league. But believe it or not, it's worked. I think that he's gotten surprising performances from the veteran players he's brought in, the likes of Alou Diarra, the likes of Benoit Pedretti. I think when they played have been excellent. I think Tobias Padilla, the young left back / center back, has done really well as well. And Youssef Bennesser, who's on loan from Monaco after being purchased, has done well as well. I think there's a lot of balance to this team, and I think that in rotation, that allows Nancy to be really aggressive and to be really physical. And they don't have a ton of goals. That is a problem. I'm not going to shy away from that. And that does worry me. I think that some of their forwards, bringing in Christophe Mandon, who've had success in Ligue 1 in the past with Guingamp, has been perhaps not the best. Anthony Cora struggled a little bit to make the leap to Ligue 1. But I think all in all, Nancy's spirit, Nancy's organization, puts them in a really good place. They don't have, you look at a team like Metz that are struggling at the bottom of the table. They don't have the same willingness to play in an organized way either. And you look at Angers, who are missing so many attacking players at AFCON. They're in danger. Lorient can be brilliant going forward, but defense is an issue there. And they're trying to address that with the acquisition of Pébernez from Bastia, but that's another one. Bastia themselves have issues with discipline. So I think that in that regard, if you stack up those reasons, the Nazi look really good, especially compared to their competitors. They seem to have a really impressive spirit about their play and about the way they relate to each other on the pitch. And it's missing from some of these other relegation-threatened teams who seem to have, if they brought in veteran players, there's somewhat of a mercenary aspect to the way that they're playing, and it doesn't come off as well. So I think well done to Correa, well done to Nancy for being where they are at this point. The second worst attack in the league, and they're in 11th place. It's pretty impressive.
Philip, do you think this run has been enough to keep them safe, possibly? I mean, they're 3 points off Saint-Etienne in 8th, which is amazing to say when in October time they looked destined for the drop.
Yeah, but they're also 4 points from the playoff spot from Angers, who are 18th. Very great run of form for Pablo Correa with beating Angers and now beating Bastia. They're making Marcel Picot some kind of Bastions. They've won five games in a row since the home defeat to Paris Saint-Germain back in October, mid-October. And I think in this league, if you do win your home games, you should be able to be safe. I mean, they are an awkward outfit to deal with. They've drawn five times away from home, but it'll be tough until the end. One thing that they should feel optimistic about is that Pablo Correa is an experienced manager. He's been at Nancy all his life, a bit a la Giroud with Auxerre, and just knows how to get the job done. In terms of players, they've got they do have what it takes. It's not a bad set of players. I just think that the relegation fight is just so tight this season that it will go down to wire. And to be honest, I don't see Nancy going down, but aside from Metz, I don't see anyone being dead set for going down since Nantes changed managers, Lille as well. It is looking up for Nancy. Going back to the question at hand, but I reckon that they'll be looking over their shoulders until the very last match day.
Yeah, and credit to them, and it's going to be a testing moment for them in the current issues with players going to the African Cup of Nations, and like Eric mentioned, Clermont Lenglet going to Spain as well. That's whether they can hang on is maybe the issue heading forwards, but hopefully they can keep the form they've shown. But we're going to finish very quickly, Philip. I'm just going to get your thoughts on this, your favourite topic at least, which is relegation. You've briefly mentioned it there, and Caen, Lorient and Nantes all won at the weekend. Draws for Dijon, Metz and Angers, so not many people moved around, but everyone gained points. It's been a strange week, but who do you think had the best week and give them the best chance, really, of starting a bit of form in the second half of the season?
I'm going to go with Caen. Big win against Lyon. Patrice Garand has tried many systems. That 3-4-3 or rather was a 4-5-1 yesterday. Seemed to work very, very well. Santini is getting more goals. Caramo is lightning quick down the right wing. Some good defending. Yeah, I honestly don't see them going down. But just like the whole bottom half of the table, they won't be safe until very late on. So call for me.
Eric, was there anyone who in that relegation fight has disappointed you this weekend or really surprised you with their result?
Oh, I definitely think Lorient. I think that their second comeback win in a row is going to do huge wonders for their confidence. I think that Pépin looks a good fit in central defense already, and I think that even with being a bit limited due to injuries in the African Cup of Nations, their willingness to keep playing attacking football is going to be really important because we've seen that the likes of Metz, the likes of Caen at times, certainly Angers, certainly Dijon, certainly even Nantes, we've just spoken about, but their lack of ability to score goals is going to be a real Achilles heel for them. That's not something that Lorient have, and I think Cassoni has shown that he's willing to go after a match, and it tends to have positive results. And increasingly, that defense is looking better and better. Getting Lindsay Rose out of there, I think, is a good thing as well, given the attitude problems he's had both at that club and at Lyon in the past. That can't be undersold either. So just a general improvement. Lecompte's back in the lineup. Had a good match as well. So I think Lorient are looking better. I know they're still in 19th, but for me, if you're going to say who's going down, I think right now, I'd probably have to look at – I think Angers are a certainty too. I just really don't think they have what it takes to stay up, even factoring in the players coming back from Africa. They and Metz, and then third team, it's tough to call. I think Dijon could slip a little bit given their AFCON absences as well. But I think for me, a great weekend for Lorient, despite sitting where they are.
Yeah, and a great win against a team like Guingamp, who've been firing on all cylinders in that first half of the season. That's all from us this week. My thanks to Eric, Philip, Mo, and all of you listening at home. Join us for the preview show hosted by Eric on Thursday, and we will see you here at the same time, same place next week. A bientôt, and goodbye.